All right, everyone. Welcome to The Moment, new show today here on MS Now. I hope you like the music. Michael, I'll begin with the question. Was this worth it?
So first off, let me say congrats on the new show. I love the homage to Shaft. That intro is awesome. It is so Katie Tur.
Thank you.
I have to admit, it really is. So kudos there. So now to the serious business. I think you so well laid this out where we are in this moment. World leaders, politicians here at home, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans, have a hugely skeptical eye to this. First off, I think we need to be clear about some of the facts, which you again laid out. This is an MOU, as I understand it, is not an actual peace agreement. That Israel has already said that it's not going to necessarily adhere to whatever it's been agreed to. So there's a piece hanging out there. The Iranians, very much to your point, it's status quo ante for them. Strait of Hormuz is open. They still have control over it. They got pretty much everything that they want. $24 billion. Barack Obama only offered up like what, 5-6 billion? Look, this is the last part of what you said is really what this has been about. It's been about the performance of strength. This has been about Donald Trump thinking he could do in Iran what he did in Venezuela, which is go in, upset the tables, take out the leadership and grab the oil, right? For whatever little side deals he and his puppets are making on that, and now what they're trying to do here. But the world and the U.S., such as there any conscious decision makers left in this government looking at this, know that what comes next is going to be very hard, because I think, as Tom pointed out in the Atlantic piece, the capitulation here is rife, and the U.S. will not be better served after having lost 13 service members, $50+ billion in expense to the American people. And what do we have to show for it?
Yeah, let's talk about the money here, the economic fallout here domestically. Let me play Vice President J.D. Vance on CNBC and on CBS.
It immediately reopens the Straits of Hormuz. We're already seeing in the past 24 hours more traffic flow. You see oil prices coming down. But you also have the long-term commitment that Iran will never develop or procure a nuclear weapon. We certainly talked with the Iranians about how we're going to destroy that enriched stockpile. The technical details are one of the things that we're going to work on when we start those technical talks on Friday.
All right, we're going to take the technical stuff on the enriched uranium apart from this, or out from this for a moment. Betsy, I want to talk about the economic fallout here at home. With a deal, if there is a deal, again, as Michael said, it's a memorandum of understanding, but with a deal, do oil prices here at home, fuel prices, come down quickly?
Start with just how much this has cost, because you often hear that $50 billion number thrown about, but that's actually direct cost to the U.S. government. The American citizen is out there paying a lot more in an inflation tax, right? So prices have gone up, and they've gone up because oil prices have gone up, energy prices. So if you look at that first month, we saw energy prices going up. We saw gas prices going up 20%. They're still going up at very high rates. So I don't think that what they're going to see is, energy starting to, I don't think we're going to get great relief very quickly, but we have already seen the rate of increase slowing down. That will definitely continue. But I think the American people want more than a slowdown in the rate of increase. I think what they want to see is deflation in energy prices. And I think that's going to take a while. We don't have enough meat on the bones of this agreement right now for anybody to be lowering prices at the pump. And there's a second problem, which is, a lot of the increased energy prices are impacting all sorts of companies that have yet to raise their prices to make up for higher energy prices. So we haven't seen all of the inflation that's come from this war bubble all the way through yet. So I don't think we want to see, any kind of I don't think we should expect to see any kind of backtrack in prices soon. But what we'll see is a slowdown in the rate of inflation that is not going to be enough for Americans when it comes time to voting. They were not promised that prices wouldn't rise so fast. They were promised prices were coming down. I don't think that they're going to see that anytime soon.
They were also promised cheaper gas, and they did have that for a little while until Donald Trump started this war and gas went shooting through the roof. As it currently stands, let me talk about Donald Trump and the way he's describing this this memorandum, this peace deal. Let's play it.
The strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found. But it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened. The oil is plummeting down, and the stock market is shooting up like a rocket today, like record kind of numbers. And the main thing is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. They fully agreed to that with strong policing powers, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, which is what it was all about.
And have we gotten there with Iran? Have they not agreed, or have they agreed to not have a nuclear weapon?
As far as I understand, they've agreed to exactly the same terms they agreed with Obama many years ago, which is they won't make a nuclear weapon, and it's up to us to find out whether or not they're doing it in secret. It's also the case, though, that with or without nuclear weapons, they now have a new tool. I mean, nuclear weapons for the Iranians were always about leverage. It was about making sure they weren't invaded. It was about something they would use, in case of emergency. They now have something new, which is the Strait of Hormuz, which is for the moment open. But they now know if they're threatened again, they can close it again. So in other words, we've actually gone backwards. So from the JCPOA, from the agreement that Obama made years ago, we're now in a worse situation. So again, the Iranians are promising not to have nuclear weapons. Again, we're saying we'll monitor that. And in addition, we're paying more money. And in addition, we've lost the trust of allies in the region, in Europe, around the world. I mean, remember that over the past several weeks, our European allies, our Gulf allies, our Asian allies have been listening to Donald Trump saying every few days, we're going to make a deal. I think CNN counted we were at 36 times he said there's a deal, or 37 times. And each time it fell through. And so there's going to be a certain amount of skepticism around this arrangement as well. I think, of course, everybody wants the war to be over. Everybody wants those strait to be open. But the layer of mistrust, the layer of doubt and skepticism around the United States, and the lack of faith in American goodwill and in American capacity, I think is going to be with us for a long time. Yeah.
I mean, the shtick is old. He said it, I believe the number actually is 39 times. And again, this is going to be something that will be hanging over this G7. And it's hard not to be skeptical of the timing. He makes this announcement just before he leaves to go, skeptical of whether it's going to actually get fleshed out, or is it intended to be something that dominates this G7? You went there a little bit, but bring me into the minds, if you can, of our allies right now. Do they just see this as a 2 more years of Donald Trump waiting period, and hopefully America will come to its senses and elect somebody who is stable and competent? Or have things been completely reset with our relationships overseas?
I think it's going to be a long time before American allies trust the United States again. You can hear Europeans say things like, well, our safety and security and the stability of the world economy can't depend forever on the votes of 40,000 people in Wisconsin. And so what you're hearing everywhere, actually, I hear it in Europe, which is where I am now, but you hear it all over the world. You hear everybody hedging. People are looking for new security arrangements. They're looking for new economic arrangements, deals between the EU and India, or the EU and South America. You see Canada in a security arrangement now with other Arctic countries and with the EU. Everybody is looking for new systems, new ways of doing business, because the idea that the United States is, it's not even about America being, pro-market or anti-market or free trade or protectionist. The idea that the United States is a stable power, in other words, is fairly predictable and can be relied upon to keep its word. and is run by people who say things that they believe to be true. Those very, very basic assumptions are gone. And I don't think they're going to be built back in 2 years or in 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Betsy, one more question on the economic front. You know, with Anne just laying out there the future economic planning for our allies, what happens when we are not the first person that countries go to, the first place countries go to make a deal? What happens when we get cut out of the equation, even marginally?
Well, one of the reasons the United States has always been so strong is because we are big, right? We can get away with doing mostly trade with ourselves and trying to be a closed economy, as economists talk about it. But we know that we've had a lot of gains over the last 40 years from having that kind of trade around the globe. And I do think we're going to see a lot of countries that are pulling back and thinking about, you know, building a new world order. I don't know what that new world order is going to look like, but I do think that it's one that, you know, Americans will ultimately be on the losing end in a world where America is deprioritized and countries are working with each other. And, you know, I just wanted to add on the reason we're not going to see any relief necessarily on prices anytime soon was because something else Anne said, which is, you know, nobody knows how true this agreement really is. So what I want to do as a company is think probabilistically. And, you know, yes, I'm excited. There is a higher probability right now than maybe yesterday that there's an agreement. But we didn't go from a 0% chance to a 100% chance. We went just a tiny way up to a little bit better of a chance. And I just don't think we're going to see a lot of movement on prices until we actually see that the strait is open. And I think our biggest problem is Iran is going to use it forever. And that's going to mean the prices never go back to what they were before.
Yeah.